Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Living in Switzerland. The series is brought to you by Rigby. We are a staffing and project services company based in Zurich. If you or anyone you know of is looking for a new role in Switzerland, or if you're looking to hire, let us know. We'd be happy to help. The best way to do that is by going to rigby.ch/apply and filling out the form. Then, if we have anything that might be of interest, we'll gladly let you know.
All right, in today's episode, we'll be speaking with Melinda and Robert Schoutens. Originally from the US, but now living in Switzerland since 2007, the Schoutens are the authors of 3 family-friendly, useful guides about fun and outdoor things to do in Switzerland. If you're interested in getting outdoors and taking advantage of all the beautiful scenery any time of year and the special mountain huts in Switzerland, then these guys will have lots of tips and suggestions for you. Melinda, Robert, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So, guys, you've been living in Switzerland since 2007. Could you tell us a little bit about your story and what brought you here?
Sure. We came over initially for a work contract for Robert, and we thought we'd be here 1 to 2 years, and that quickly morphed into what is now 15 years and 2 children later. So
yeah, classic story. It was the same thing for me. It's supposed to be 6 months and 17 years and 2 children later.
Wow.
And you've written 3 books, which are really useful guides for families about fun outdoor activities, which are Fresh Air Kids. So that's 52 inspiring hikes, Fresh Air Kids Hikes to Huts, and then Winter Kids Switzerland. Could you tell us about the books and what inspired you to write them?
Yeah, when we were living in the US, we had actually made a trip to Colorado, and we hiked in Colorado, and we fell in love with hiking. And when we moved to Switzerland's really a hiker's paradise, and we kept hiking. And then when we were pregnant with both of the kids, we kept hiking, and we loved it so much we didn't want to give it up once they came along. So we would strap them on our backs and just set out. Yeah. And we'd come back from a weekend of hiking, and people would always ask us, well, how do you know where to go? Or what is a family-friendly location? Or what about theme trails? And so we kind of had this moment where we thought, maybe we should put this in writing as a guide for people so they can get all of these questions answered in a single book or single location.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always think that if I ever leave Switzerland for some reason and I look back on my time here, one thing that I might regret is if I didn't go on those hikes, if I didn't go and explore the mountains and so on.
Yeah, I mean, Switzerland is so remarkably beautiful. And something else, Daniel, is that for us, it became an extension of parenting. Because whenever it got too loud or too crazy or too rambunctious in the house, we would go outside and immediately it felt like the world was so much bigger and our kids could be louder and we'd be in beautiful scenery, even if it was at a local botanical garden or even in the Alps or a local mountain. It just was such a nice place for our kids to act like children.
Yeah, will serve as a kind of a reset, maybe gets everybody off of their devices.
Absolutely. It's been a huge saving grace for us throughout the years. And I mean, there's a lot of information and studies on that too, that say it really helps in a lot of different areas for children, but also for adults, we seek the benefits as well.
For sure. And in Fresh Air Kids, you wrote about, among other things, you wrote about SAC huts. So for those who aren't familiar, could you explain, please, what an SAC hut is?
Yeah, sure. The SAC huts are Swiss Alpine Clubs, and they're originally founded in 1863. They were formulated as a way to serve as a base location while exploring, different areas of the mountains and, acting as a point to reach the summits.
Yeah.
So there's many, many huts throughout all of the Alps, in fact, but also there's Berg houses, Berg hotels, and just various mountain houses that are independently owned. So there's a wide variety of different mountain locations that people can seek when going out and hiking.
Yeah, I wonder if people know that. There's a whole network of these places that could serve as your kind of base camp. And some of them are really in spectacular locations. And one thing that's interesting, because some of them are quite remote, is how they get their food and other resources up there. Could you tell us about that, please?
Yeah, so many of these places are so remote, you can only access them by foot or donkey or helicopter. So it's a challenge to, one, be served with food or supplies and other things, but also, just the general service, of carrying food in and out and trash away and things like that. So it gives you a little bit more respect for, the transportation needs around that. Some people we've even seen carrying on their back or mountain biking up with like massive backpacks of food.
Right.
So there's a wide variety of how they get their food there. So once you see it and you're experiencing it in the mountain, you gain a much more like deeper sense of appreciation for what they're doing.
Absolutely. And it's spectacular to watch, isn't it? When you see this perfectly choreographed delivery by helicopter.
Yeah, a lot of them are serviced still by helicopters. So to watch them come in and drop the goods and take the trash away, it's seamless. It's a seamless process. It's very cool.
Yeah, they're paying by the minute for the flights.
Right. So they come and go so quickly and so efficiently, don't they?
Yeah,
definitely.
Absolutely.
Now, speaking of helicopters, do you two both subscribe to Rega?
We do. Rega is the Swiss Air Rescue, and it's just a phenomenal resource and service that those guys and women provide to the Alps, the Alp region. So it's great. You can become a patronage for a very inexpensive rate for the year and for your family. And they just offer medical advice should you ever need it in the mountains. But also, if you ever do need it, they also offer rescue.
Rescue, right. And we'll include a link to that in the show notes, but it's a really good deal, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's priceless, truly.
Yeah. And I mean, you could think of it as an extension of insurance or something else, but it's really, they work on your behalf with your insurance as well to kind of, give you that benefit or the negotiate the price in a way that makes sense for everybody, really.
Sure. Where Rega might be helpful is in particular as if someone should have an accident in the mountains. And in fact, there was actually a spike in the number of accidents around last July. Right, guys? Do you have any idea why that is?
Yeah, there was an article, Daniel, published in Swiss Info in August of 2022. And the article alluded to they were seeing more rescues than ever this past summer. And they think it's because perhaps the pandemic kept a lot of people inside and people were more eager to get out. But there was a spike in hiking and mountaineering and also the melting permafrost, which is quite sad. And then that leads to more rock falls, which can pose significant danger in the mountains.
Yeah, no, this last July was also not a spike in heat, but just warm throughout the entire July. And there was another statistic where the glaciers melted a thickness of about 1.5 meters. So if you can imagine, like it melted that elevation loss, let's say, in the glaciers. So the heat was a lot as well. And I think that alludes to permafrost that is thawing and causing this instability of rock falls.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, to think about. So there's that, but there's also the idea that a lot of people were cooped up at home during lockdown, during the pandemic. And for that reason, maybe there was an increase in the number of people going to hikes afterwards. Do you have any other ideas what might have contributed to the spike in the number of accidents?
Yeah, I mean, we always see whenever we're out, and we can be in remote locations or in very touristy areas, but we see a lot of people hiking really ill-equipped, meaning they're in tennis shoes and not hiking boots. And hiking boots have much better thread than a tennis shoe ever would. We've been in locations where there's no water or mountain huts to get food. And we see people out there with no backpacks or water. So that can be quite dangerous if your hike is long or if the day is really hot, or if you were to have an accident and you didn't have supplies in your backpack that could help you.
Yeah, sure. Makes sense. So anecdotally, we think that perhaps people are not properly equipped.
Yeah, we definitely see that. And perhaps people may not be familiar with the Swiss trail system and may not understand the signalization in the country.
Yeah, there was this guy near Zermatt one time when we passed. He was on his way to the Hornli-Hütte, which is right at the base of the Matterhorn. And he looked like he was going mountain climbing, but he kind of stopped and asked us if he was going the right way. And I kind of thought, like, this is a really advanced hike for this guy, and he looks prepared. But like, if you're going to that location and you're going to go do something like that, you should really kind of know your way.
Yeah,
It's quite worrying, isn't it?
Yeah. And starting out early in the day, particularly in winter where you have less daylight hours, so you really have to play that into consideration. If you're embarking on a long hike, you need to make sure you have adequate light for that time.
And that you familiarize yourself with the Swiss Signalisation system, it's the so-called T system. Could you tell us a bit about that, please?
Yeah, so basically the T system was basically created to grade the levels of trails. So you have a T1 to T6. A T1 is your basic yellow trails. And then the T6 is basically mountain climbing with ropes. So it has the entire gradation built in there. A T2 and 3 is typically your white, red, white trails or your mountain trails.
Right.
And then a T4 is the start of your alpine trails. And that a T4 is, let's say, more advanced than the white, red, white, but it may be a mix of, let's say not clearly marked trails, but also maybe some handholds or ropes, or ladder, in order to get through some of the sections. But it tends to be a little bit more advanced, I would say.
Yeah, I think the alpine trails are far more advanced, particularly for people with children. And a lot of those alpine trails, you need special equipment. You might need crampons or ropes, ice axes, a compass is really helpful. So our rule of thumb for that is we don't embark on alpine trails or white, blue, white trails with our children.
Okay, so you draw the line at white, blue, white trails, alpine trails.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, we do mountain trails with our kids because a lot of the trails leading to the Schoutens or some of the other mountain inns are on white, red, white trails. And they have handholds, but we feel more comfortable with those than we just don't feel comfortable at all having children on alpine trails.
Wow. I'm getting excited just thinking about it.
Yeah, one more thing with the T system is that it may not be obvious to see it just from looking at the map or looking at the signalization, but when you start going into the Alps for, visiting huts and other things, the huts will usually name the routes, or they'll tell you the routes, and they'll give you that T classification system. So when you're on like the SAC portal, in order to find locations or ways, they list it mainly there. So it's not as widely used or obvious to, let's say, most people.
I think that's good to know. And there's something like 65,000 kilometers of trails in Switzerland, and they are classified according to difficulty by color. But if you're up there and looking at a sign, there are other things on the sign, aren't there? Could you tell us about that, please?
Yeah, sure. When you look at a sign, not all will have it, but a lot do. In the center of the trail marker is usually white. It tells you your location and current elevation. And then if you want to go to an endpoint, it'll tell you the name of the location and how long it'll take to get there. So maybe 2 hours and 45 minutes. Again, they don't all universally state the time and the location, but you'll see them throughout the hiking routes. And it'll also have an icon. So it might have an icon of a gondola, a tram, a train, a sun, which is a lookout point. But that tells you when you reach that destination, you can expect a train or a tram or a gondola to be there upon your arrival.
Right, exactly. And it's interesting, isn't it, that instead of telling you the distance, they tell you how long they think it will take you to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. And we all hike at different paces.
Right.
And certainly when you have children, those hiking times will definitely be extended because little children have smaller legs. They are enamored with the environment. So they like to look at butterflies or they want to stop and collect rocks. So it certainly takes a lot longer with children.
Do you have a rule of thumb about how much longer?
Yeah, we usually double it. So if it says it's a 2-hour hike, allow for 4
hours.
Snacks,
sounds about
and
right.
Extra snacks.
Questions.
So you'll need more time. Exactly.
Yeah, something else with the trail markers is that they'll typically point you in the direction you need to go, and so they'll split off in different directions. But also, it lists from top to bottom the nearest location to the furthest location. So it's almost like reading a menu of like what you want to do or where you're going. So
that's good to know.
Yeah. And if you don't see the trail markers, then you might see a painted rock, a garbage can. So the trail markers appear in different ways throughout the trail.
Just cueing you to make sure you're still on the same path.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. That's good. And are there any hikes in particular that you would recommend? Or any huts?
Yeah. One hut that we absolutely found just so beautiful was Legler Hütte in Canton Glarus. And it's definitely a hike and it's an uphill hike to get there. So you're going to work to get there. But once you're there, it's 360-degree views of just beautiful terrain.
Right.
And it's remote, so you just feel like you're away from everything. And that one is stunning.
Definitely.
Wow. So you have this full panorama.
Yes.
Yeah.
So children could do that. They could do that hike.
Yeah, we did that with our children. They were, I think at the time that we did it, they were maybe 9 and 11 or 8 and 10.
Yeah, something.
So yeah, older children who are familiar and comfortable hiking, you'll definitely need to incentivize them along the route, but it's definitely possible. Another one we like, and it's still a bit uphill, but is the Alps area in Appenzell. They have a couple of berghouses along the lake, and that's just a beautiful area. It can be a little crowded because a lot of tourists like to go there, but in the night it kind of clears out and it's very peaceful on the lake. So it's lovely.
One thing that we should maybe say at this point, though, is that the hiking season for most of these huts and mountain inns is quite short, right?
Yeah, that's a great point, Daniel. Most of the huts, and depending on location, elevation, location, and the snow levels, will be open from the end of June till September or October. But we always tell people to check the website to make sure the hut is open indeed, and to have a reservation before even going. And then a lot of the websites will tell you the best way or the best route to get there, if you're looking for an easy route or a more difficult route, which is important to know if you're hiking with children.
They may also link to like webcams in the area or something, so that you can see that day what the snow levels might be if at all.
Yeah, it's a good point, isn't it? But from the end of June through until September or maybe early October. But probably the best idea would be book ahead, make sure it's open, check before you go.
Yeah, and actually, I mean, now is also a good time to book or start planning summer. I mean, some of these huts, they fill up 6 months in advance. So, when the weather's great and people plan ahead, now is not unrealistic to plan your summer.
Yeah, it's not. That's a good point. Yeah.
And are there any other tips that you would share with people who are new to Switzerland to help them to settle down and enjoy life here?
Yeah, I think we notice a lot of people who are here, or they think they're here for just a short while. They're really eager to see all of Europe, and I think that's a great ambition. But we always say to not overlook Switzerland, because it's such a beautiful country, and it's so diverse with, you might be in the Italian speaking part, or you might be in the German speaking part, or French, and they all have a different flair and a different feeling. And the Alps are just really so special.
And it's so small, it's easy to get everywhere, so it's the accessibility just can't be beat from any other country.
And the nature is just phenomenal.
I wholeheartedly agree, guys. Okay, well, before we finish, could you tell our listeners, please, where they can find out more about you and about the books that you've written?
Our books are published through Helvetic. And we have a website, which is freshairkids.com. So our books are available through our website or Helvetic or anywhere books are sold in Switzerland.
All right. Well, Melinda, Robert, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us, Daniel.
And thanks to you for listening. We'll include links in the show notes to our guest and to further materials about some of the topics that we've spoken about today. If you enjoyed the episode, please leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Once again, this podcast was brought to you by Rigby. We're a staffing and project services company here in Zurich. If you would like our help either to hire or to be hired, let us know. Best way to do that is by going to rigby.ch/apply and filling out the form. You can also sign up for our newsletter at rigby.ch/newsletter to receive our Living in Switzerland guide. We'll send you 1 email per month about expat-focused news and jobs in Switzerland. So thanks, and until the next time.